All right, guys, another great episode of PFREI. I'm your host, Fuquan Bilal. Now, make sure you guys actually catch us on Twitter, Instagram. We bring a lot of great guests to you guys. Today, we have Cal Jones from TruePoint Capital. Now, Cal, usually I give the guests an opportunity to share their experience and their journey with the group. Let's talk a little bit about your background and give them, I guess, your bio, if you will, so they have an understanding of where you come from and exactly what you do.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, number one. So really excited to be here, kind of share my story. So TruePoint Capital, we focus on alternative asset classes that's primarily geared towards commercial real estate. Right now, we're pretty heavily focused in the multifamily space, so apartment buildings, residential living. We've got a couple other things that we're working on that are outside of multifamily that have to do with land type deals and shopping center type stuff. But to date, we just have been focused on multifamily housing. So we have about 900, a little over 900 units that are under our control, and so. I have been the primary person that has been out there putting the deals together, sourcing the deals, structuring them, and then I've got a partner who helps us raise the capital because we raise private capital through syndication to purchase these buildings, and then we operate them with a third-party manager from there.
That's awesome. Now you look pretty calm for 900 units under your belt.
Yeah.
You're like bald head, stressed out, bags eyes. Let's talk about the start. I mean, well, the first question I ask the guests is usually, why are you passionate for real estate investing?
Yeah, I'm really passionate for it's probably not just one reason. It's a few reasons that have built up. I really started paying attention to it when I was in college, watching Flip This House. I don't know why, but I got into that, and my buddies were watching something else and hanging out watching movies, and I was watching, the original HGTV Flip This House show. So always had a passion for taking a product, taking a distressed property and revitalizing it to something new. Just very interested in that. And then it wasn't until later, never really did anything after college with real estate. It wasn't until I got married and we had like an accidental flip on a property that we were living in, my wife and I, and we turned around and sold it. Decided that we were going to move, sold it for a nice profit, and we only lived in it for 9 months. So that's really when it kind of went off for me that it could work. But really, the focus into the multifamily space is a little bit different these days from where I came from, and it's evolved because I eventually got started to purchasing more single-family homes and using them as rental properties, but it just wasn't scaling as quickly as I wanted, which is why I gravitated towards multifamily because I knew we could raise capital in doing so, and scale the business and purchasing more properties that way. The whole why behind it now is just really being able to generate enough cash flow to live off of to try to live a more passive lifestyle. I mean, I say try because it's not really passive when you're also doing asset management. But I've got 3 kids, I've got a family, and I don't want to be tied to a clock, if you will, for the rest of my life. I want to have a long, beautiful life with my wife and kids, and once they get out of the house, then my wife and I can travel and do, virtually what we want to do and live how we want to live. And to me, that's what financial freedom means to me. And real estate in general is one of the biggest ways, or I would say one of the easier ways. It's not easy, but that's the word that comes to mind. It's the least path of resistance where you can obtain that type of freedom versus just working a W-2 job where you work from home, so you have flexibility, but you're still tied to your phone or your computer when you go on vacation. So that's kind of a little evolution of where I've came from and what my why has evolved into.
Now, if you went from single family to multi-family, I mean, you said because you wasn't able to scale the single family. I'm guessing in your area is mainly one families that you go rehab, you rent out, you collect, I don't know, $400 or $500 a month in profit, you know, if you're lucky, and you would have to do 1,000 of those to really make it to where you just buy one or two buildings and have all of your problems in
Right.
one place.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's it's just it's a numbers game, right? I mean, there's people who do that who have built a very successful business purchasing just single family homes. They're totally financial free. But in where how I wanted to get started was to really kind of expedite that process a little bit quicker. Because most of the people that I know who have scaled up a single family portfolio that big, it's taken them, 10 plus years. And, I think with the focus in multifamily, looking forward to 10 years and where I could be, I think it could be uh, light years ahead of just trying to work towards a single family portfolio is just kind of my own thought process there.
What do you think about the returns though? I mean, if you was to have, well, you said you'd be able to scale faster
Right.
buying 200 units versus if you had, well, now market we have multi-families, we have 4 families, 2 families, 3 families, so it's easy to scale up, buying
Sure.
those multi-families, if you will, 1 through 4 family versus single family. But what about cap rates? Were you seeing better returns on a single family asset versus having all of these units in one building with a lot of maintenance, with a lot of turnover and stuff like that? I mean, what about that part?
Yeah, it's definitely getting more challenging. And in the multifamily space, the brokers still control a lot of the properties. And the comparison to single family, you can spend a good amount of money on marketing, and you can get direct to the owner pretty quickly with single family. So you have a competitive advantage if you invest in your marketing efforts, and you can get directly to owner versus going to a broker. So that is one disadvantage that we have, and that's a big part of why I think the cap rates have compressed, is because these brokers get these properties and they just drive them up, they bid them up, even in the off market or the pocket listing situation where they haven't really fully listed it out to their website. It's still very competitive. So to counteract that, I just focus on building rapport and relationships with the broker community that I have. And I've essentially been able to build that portfolio through 2 brokers. It's not like I have 10 brokers that I'm purchasing properties from. It's really just 2. And I've got a great relationship with them. I'm actually flying this broker in from the market that we invest in. I'm bringing them to Houston. I'm going to take them out for a steak dinner and just show them appreciation. And so I try to stay visible and stay in front of them, even though it's sort of a remote relationship. So
Yeah, that's important. I mean, this is a relationship business, right?
totally.
They always say your network is your net worth. So having those people who's especially feeding you deals, making sure that they understand what your goals are and they are in line with, your core values is important. And that creates a long lasting relationship. The markets that you're in, let's talk a little bit about that. Are you in more of the southern markets? Is that's where you finding a bigger bang for the buck? Are you doing stuff like people are like in Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, all those other places?
Yep. So I am in the Southeast, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi. I have a smaller multifamily one-off property in Tulsa, but my focus is primarily in the Southeast. It's for a number of reasons. I think right now, especially the biggest thing is it's still affordable housing. That's part of the issue that we have in Houston and some of the other major markets around Texas, especially, or anywhere else, is some of these B and C class properties. The average rents are creeping into the 1,000+ range. And that the B and C class, that's typically that's your quote unquote your affordable housing type of resident. Well, that is slowly becoming less and less affordable to that person. So now they're having to look at alternatives and go elsewhere, even though they would love to live there. They just simply can't afford it. That's not really the case in the markets that I'm invested in. And, we're strategic about it. We're not just investing in any market. These markets have job growth, population growth. So people are coming in, but we're still able to purchase properties where maybe an average 1-bedroom apartment rents for $500, and we can put some capital into it and raise it to $600 to $650 in some cases. That is unheard of in a lot of these markets, the major markets anyways, especially when you start factoring in the East Coast and the West Coast markets. But, and the warm weather climates. I just think that there's certain things that can take a toll on the property in colder weather climates. I honestly also, I would prefer to come into a warm weather climate. I mean, in Houston, I live here, so I don't deal with the cold very well. And the other big thing is just accessibility for me. Being in Houston, United has a hub here, so I can get to these markets on a direct flight, hour and a half at most. So
that's right in the center of everything. What about, I know you're in the multifamily space, but have you ever considered like the commercial, like office space and stuff like that? I'm pretty sure those deals have to come by your table. The broker has those deals also. I mean, it's more long-term leases, less turnover. Have you considered any of that now that you are in quote unquote the commercial space?
Yeah, we have. We've actually had 2 different properties where we've actually put them under contract. They were absolute triple net properties. We have another one. They fell through, just other reasons during the due diligence phase, so we didn't end up closing. This was about a year ago. We do have one that we're under contract. It's a 100,000 square foot center. It's in a growing part of Houston. One that I'm really excited about is a ground lease. We put a land deal under contract, and it's a unique situation where I'm working with, he's a good buddy of mine that I grew up with. He's developing this construction theme park for family and friends or kids to come in, and they can operate big heavy duty machinery that is obviously modified for the average person to come in so they're not hurt on the equipment. But he's got a major partnership with Caterpillar and another, actually a university that the deal's not sealed, so I can't spill the beans on it, but it's a university. They're actually going to put an educational building on. They're committed. They're going to put an education center on the property because they have a whole construction school. So that's the tenant. I'm only putting the land deal together. So they're going to lease the land back to me, and it's a ground lease. So literally have no responsibility. Everything, property taxes and liability, insurance, all that's passed through to the tenant in that case. But I'm really excited about it just because it's so unique. And we're able to structure the lease in a mutually beneficial way where I can still go get a couple of investors to invest in that deal and make a good return without having to deal with a third-party manager.
Sweet. That's awesome.
It's cool.
What challenges do you run into? I mean, you talked about compression of cap rates and everything else. What other challenges do you run into in the multifamily space? And what would you tell somebody who's listening to this podcast to look out for? Something that maybe you've gotten hurt by and learned a lesson from?
Yeah, that's what a lot of people on the podcast circuit, they don't really talk about the hardships, if you will. And it has definitely been a challenge to, number one, just get these properties operating in an efficient manner. We even have a good property manager, and they're very sophisticated, but it's just they can only do so much in some cases to keep the property running in good form. meaning and managing expenses, managing the capital improvements well, and just sticking to the budget. Certain things pop up. You have a water leak under the concrete. That's happened to me on 5 different properties now.
I have that right now.
I got it down. I got thick skin now. But the first time that it happened, it's like, oh man, what is that? That sounds expensive. It's like, so just things like that. You got to really, I guess the advice that I would give is just come into this with eyes wide open, because you just never know what you're going to encounter, but it's not the end of the world. And that's the biggest part of it. You can always find a solution to solve the problem. It may take a while, but there's always solutions available, especially if you surround yourself with the right experience and an experienced team. It's just a matter of getting your teeth wet and getting used to seeing things. I mean, we've had, in addition to the leaks, we've had to take a property down to 50% occupancy because we needed to turn it over. And that was kind of a surprise. But we've built it back up, and we're, 90 to 95% occupied. But it took time. We've had tenants pass away. We have had an isolated shooting on one of the properties. And we're not even in none of the properties are even in a what one would call a major, crime area type thing. It happens. I mean, it happens in the A-class properties too, but when it happens, you have to be sensitive to how to handle certain things, and, deal with the tenant's family, and, just making sure that you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's when it comes to that. And you just can't crumble under pressure. So.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. I mean, the business is definitely fun, but there's challenges every day, and you have to become a solution specialist almost. And these are things that you learn from, and you can process map so it won't happen again. I mean, like you mentioned something actually that resonated with me, because I actually had it happen today. I'm looking over reports, expenses reports, and I see an email come through, and I don't really check that stuff because the property management company that I have, in-house property management company, they take care of all that. But they had a break-in in a good area, a B-class area, where someone ripped out the water meter for the copper. So you're going to get like $15 for that?
Yeah.
But created 3 feet of water in the basement. I don't know what happened with the drain, but it was in a mixed-use property, and the appliances, water tanks, and HVAC units, all flooded out. So it's like $5-6 grand, insurance company. But anyway, I get it. Those are challenges, but it was just like, I was like, okay, what's next? Yeah. Okay, you guys taking care of it. But people get involved, and they go crazy with that. Like you mentioned, the water pipe under the ground broken or something like that. But you just have to stay focused and look at the bigger picture, and definitely get beyond that. But
exactly.
Sure, you want to plug your website where people can kind of follow you and see what you're doing, social media handles?
Yeah. I mean, social media, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. It's just my name, Kyle Jones. My primary website, and my logo, TruePoint Capital. It's TruePointCap.com. Just TruePointCap.com. That's spelled the normal way. And my email is kjones@TruePointCap.com. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. So
now, when you guys are raising capital for these syndications, what type of deal split are you doing? With investors, are you doing a pref and some type of profit participation? Terms.
We generally, so right now, as of late, we've just been having, we've gotten a little creative, but it's still simple for the investor to understand. We have a Class A1, Class A2. The A1 is generally just a straight 10% preferred return. And then the Class A2 is typically a 75-25 equity split. So 25% to the general partnership. So when you invest in that side, you of course get your share of that 75%. That's equated to how many shares you buy in the offering. But we have 2 different options. The 10% pref. Some people like the more. Nothing's guaranteed, but that's can be more consistent cash flow than just waiting for the upside, because sometimes you don't hit your distribution schedule, and that's a risk you take for for investing on the upside. But when you hit the upside, it is nice, and it pays off well.
Yeah, isn't it like so? You need so much thought that go into setting up the right deal, the structure, because you want to appease everyone. You want to appease the people who need that monthly cash flow, and some people don't need monthly cash flow. They would rather take a piece of equity. So you have to make sure, when you're putting the offering together, that you kind of take care of both sides, if you will.
Absolutely.
But it's always mind-boggling of what do we come up with? Or how do because you want to benefit everyone. You want to benefit yourself, and you want to make sure that the people who are making it happen by producing the capital win as well. So it always amazed me. That's the challenging part when you're sitting down, the SEC attorney drawing up those documents, like, which direction do we go?
I mean, my advice on that is just to keep it simple, because I mean, it can get really confusing even for me, who we've done 7 different syndications. I learn something new every time. It can get confusing really, really quick. So just make that decision, but then when you communicate it out, really oversimplify that to your investors.
Yeah, they just like to see, how much money am I making?
Totally. Yeah. No, I mean, we have some really high net worth folks, and they don't necessarily understand returns all the time. So when you start spitting out all these numbers like IRR, cash on cash, what's the cap rate? Like, I don't even know what you're saying. Just show me, if I invest this, what does that mean to me?
This was a dollar amount.
Yeah.
5th grade level.
Yeah, exactly.
It's another great episode of PFREI. Thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate your time.
Anytime.
You guys can catch us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all those other social media places where podcasts are at. I'm your host, Fuquan Bilal. It's a great show today. Make sure you check them out, TruePoint. And that's it. That's all I got for today, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.